This is the Automotive Repair Podcast Network.
Welcome, everyone, to yet another episode of Diagnosing the Aftermarket A to Z. I'm Matt Fonzland. You know, one of the duties of a captain is to get the team up. That and more after a word from our sponsors, Pico Technology. Are you chasing elusive automotive problems? Pico Technology empowers you to see what's really happening. Pinpoint faults in sensors, wiring, and components with unmatched accuracy. Picoscope oscilloscopes transform your diagnostic capabilities. Visit picoauto.com, that's Pico auto.com, and revolutionize your diagnostics today. Well, if you're not familiar with that quote, it's from a movie, believe it or not. So maybe I have good knack, bad habit. One of those for applying a lot of what I see to life in general, or at least the repair shop. The movie is Mr. Baseball, and it was a comedy, or I guess it is. It's not like it disappeared. Starring Tom Selleck. I don't even know if I would guess somewhere in the 90s. It's a baseball movie, believe it or not. If you want to, take the title literally. He's an American or Major League Baseball player for the New York Yankees. And at one point, I think we can infer that he was an all-star, very much a leader and great player. He had the agent and the ego to match. But it's implied that he's not producing like he used to. And there's a rookie who kind of looks to be going to be taking his place on the team. He's pulled into the office and they're going to trade him. And he doesn't really want to be traded, but eventually buys into it that if he's not wanted, he doesn't want to be where he's not wanted. So they're going to trade him, and he's concerned about where they're going to be trading him, and very, very concerned about being traded to Cleveland. So sorry, Brian. Well, Brian and John, to be honest. Sorry about that. That's the script. Not to drag this out and just scene by scene how this movie goes, but he gets shipped over to Japan. I guess one of the comedy angles, of course, is if Tom Selleck's a relatively tall person in general. Over in Japan, he towers over everyone. The main point, really, why it's got my attention, got me thinking, the movie and the plot and how it really relates to us, is that at one time he was the man, and gets traded to this team, and very arrogantly he thinks that the gaijin, the white guy, the American, is just going to come into this Japanese league and dominate. He starts out okay, but it's pointed out many times by his coach that he has a hole in his swing. And also, his body is starting to break down, right? His knees, particularly. He's starting to get out of shape, at least out of game shape, right? He's a leading man, of course. Relative to most of us, he's in terrific shape. But he's on the decline. In the back of his head, though, even if he accepts without telling anybody that he is on the decline, that his body's breaking down, the reflexes probably aren't what they used to be, the timing probably isn't what it used to be, the power isn't what it used to be, he still has some really good games and maybe years left in him. And that's also what the coach, who also turns out to be the general manager, or at least, very involved in the process of acquiring him, also believes. He's over there struggling. His ego is such that he's, in his mind, still a terrific player, making all kinds of excuses. To quote part of the movie, there's high tide, there's low tide, and then there's high tide, and he's in low tide. But low tide sounds like it's been quite a while. And they have high expectations. They brought him in specifically to win, to beat a particular team, and I think to go on and win in their tournaments or playoffs. I feel like that applies probably to everybody, but auto repair. In our world, that kind of applies. We don't get traded, but bodies start breaking down. And like sports, as you get older and your body starts declining, And your brain, your knowledge, your wisdom, valuable as it is, still isn't enough to overcome that, and your production drops, and therefore your value drops, perceived value at least. A lot of us, as we get older, depending on what age that is, I'm sure it's by individual. Some people are just still really going at 60, while others are starting to really see decline in their bodies in their 40s. I mean, it could be earlier due to injury too, or just bad luck of the draw, but all of a sudden now you're not as valuable and you're not getting paid as much. If you're on a production bonus and you can't crank out the work, no production bonus, or at least it's reduced, and now you're making less money than you did in your 20s or 30s. That's a very real thing. Now, granted, I don't want to compare it directly to sports because, yeah, their high tide is way more than ours, and then their low tide is still more than most of our high tides, if not all of our high tides, meaning income. That makes it not the greatest comparison, but if we can just kind of remove the actual dollar amounts, there's a lot of correlation there. And if we kind of go back to the movie, and the main character, Tom Selleck, plays Jack, I guess a little bit of a side thing, starts dating and eventually falls in love with a kind of maybe a manager kind of his for what he's going to do with his contract with the Japanese team. And he, is supposed to do commercials and stuff like that. And she's kind of in charge of that part. She turns out to be the coach's daughter, unbeknownst to Jack. And in a meeting, he learns that the coach speaks English. There's a big falling out argument, if you will. I don't know about falling out. Big argument between the daughter/girlfriend and the coach. And of course, Tom Selleck's character, Jack, and schemed, the scheme was to get those two to talk, the coach and Jack. And it kind of talks about, we brought you in for a reason, and we still think you have some good years in you, some good miles left, but you're going to have to work on things. You're going to have to work on that swing. You've been getting away with stuff because, your hand speed or skill, talent was such that it overcame it. Now that you don't have it, it's being exposed. So you have to relearn how to hit. And then, you're going to have to start some sort of a physical regiment, working out to try to get your body into shape and to overcome, whatever the degradation because of time. This is where a lot of the inspiration to even talk about this, and yet another movie and movie reference on this podcast, that there was kind of a moment where the ego had to go away. The ego had to get checked. He had to accept. I say that kind of with a little bit of I hate to say accent, but emphasis almost, or just differently, because accept gets mentioned in there many times, particularly by the girlfriend, and as it being kind of a Japanese thing. And I don't know if it's really a Japanese thing. I think it's honestly ends up becoming a very healthy psychological type thing, where someday maybe we'll talk about something called radical acceptance. I don't know if it's necessarily pertains to this situation or analogy I'm working on or working towards or beating around the bush with or trying to drag out. I'm really not trying to drag this out, but he has to finally look that manager in the eye and really, more importantly, accept and level with himself. Like, if I really want this, if I want a chance to go back to the US and play in the majors, if I want to have another few good years, my life has to change. Like, I have to start rededicating myself. I'm going to have to re-find that motivation or whatever it is, that love of the game, maybe love of the job, and not just the games, but everything else. Kind of does that. You start seeing him work out. You start seeing him waking up early in the morning, getting some workouts in, also stuff to try to help with his body degradation, right? I don't want to just jump around about age. Age is a contributing factor, but I guess maybe like Indiana Jones, sometimes it isn't the age, it's the mileage. That kind of rebuilding and then doing drills for hitting that have nothing to do with hitting or don't look to be directly involved with hitting. Electric and hybrid vehicles are here, and with them, a new era of diagnostics. Don't get left behind. Pico Technologies EV diagnostic kits are your all-in-one solution to safely and efficiently service any electric or hybrid vehicle. From comprehensive high-voltage system analysis and insulation testing to guided step-by-step procedures, Pico puts the power of confident repairs right at your fingertips. Future-proof your shop, boost your efficiency, and become the go-to expert for the next generation of cars. Visit picoauto.com today. That's PICOauto.com. I do think this movie came out after The Karate Kid. I don't know that it was quite so vague or whatever, with the lessons and the wax on, wax off and the sanding and the painting all leading up to being karate type moves. But there's things with intention to get Jack to say, I want to hit baseballs. And that was a big thing for a little bit of a slump to change that attitude and then work his way back and remove that hole in his swing. And then another really, really big thing was he apologized to the team for his bad attitude and for his ego and letting them down and not being the leader that he could be and should be, and was kind of naturally became like he was the newest player on the team. And yet very quickly he became the leader. He just wasn't very good at it and certainly didn't accept the role. Certainly, I don't think he even thought of himself as one, to be honest. Not recognizing it and then not using that opportunity to improve the team, improve his relationship with the team. But he apologizes to everybody in Japanese for the most part, right? If you've seen the movie. Yeah, now they're working out with him. The team's rallying around him. They're starting to gel. And then, of course, right, like any movie like this, right, you put in the hard work and now the team's winning. Jack's playing better. He's now Mr. Baseball. He's on TV. Show is talking about his hitting streak and all the things, and they beat the team they're supposed to beat. There's stuff with that for story that isn't really important to what we're talking about here. The key, I guess the takeaways for me were the veterans in this profession and leaders, natural leaders, when your bodies are starting to break down, that yes, we have to reconsider what perceived value is and what is real value. And how do we handle somebody with wisdom and knowledge that maybe isn't in a position to just crank out the hours, whatever that means. Some shops, maybe cranking out the hours is, 30 hours. I don't know, 40 hours, 50 hours, 60 hours and more. I know it's all over the board. Whatever those expectations are and what the systems will allow and are geared towards, can somebody in those more advanced ages, again, whatever that means, because there's some people who's, they've twisted wrong a few times and they're in their late 30s, early 40s and moving like old people because it took a lot out of them. And yet they have a lot going on upstairs to help everyone else. There should be value in that. And the degradation of income shouldn't follow so hard that it drives people out. I don't know if it does so much anymore because of, at least salary wise, because we're hurting so much for skilled individuals and knowledge and stuff like that. But I know there are techs out there right now, technical specialists, really mechanical specialists, right? Heavily on the mechanical specialists is, yeah, at one time they were just turning out hours, again, whatever that means. And now because of their bodies, their backs, their knees, their shoulders, their hips, necks, you just can't do it. And so how does the shop modify itself to add value to what they're doing and put them in a position to be valuable along with as a mechanical specialist and technical specialist being valuable, making yourself valuable too. I like how in the movie the ego has to get checked. It isn't, you just can't have the chip on your shoulder that you're going to be cranking out all this work and thus how valuable you are. That isn't there anymore. You are probably a leader. And because of that, there's value in that to the shop, to yourself, to everyone else, to act such. Help everyone else out. And this is where management, a lot of times, I don't know, either that I hate to believe they do it on purpose, but maybe failure to recognize how important that is to the shop, to everyone, to the production of the shop. It's all about the unit, right? The individual parts absolutely contribute to, the machine and the success of the whole, but you need, what we really care about is the entire business or the entire shop, the entire organization being productive and valuable and profitable. So yeah, checking our egos at the door, doing what we got to do to be valuable and increase that. And if the bodies are breaking down, yeah, we got to go take care of our bodies, whatever that may mean. Is that, massages? Is that chiropractic? Is that yoga, tai chi, like something that's focused, on some physical health, but addressing those issues? Is it exploring, better mattresses, something like that all of a sudden is putting years back on your productive life, if that will, that your work life and just comfort, right? It's like if you're not in constant pain, you might not have such a bad attitude or quite the attitude that you would when you kind of feel good or feel better. And then expanding our skill sets outside of our niche and becoming stronger in other areas that maybe are less taxing on our bodies. And then, I think just being on the level with yourself, management being aware, constantly working on just maximizing contributions for the entire organization, the entire business. I think everybody kind of misses their spots, right? On our end as employees, maybe not checking our egos, maybe not working to maximize our value. If need be, at least directly asking for some attention towards that. And I don't necessarily mean that ego driven, more matter of fact. And then, management has to be aware. They just can't cast blind eyes or really accept ignorance. They just can't. I know it's asking a lot of everyone. Awareness. Catch me on a different day and I'll tell you awareness sucks. But if you haven't seen the movie, I highly recommend it. It is entertaining. But I think you can watch it with a little bit different viewpoint, a little different perspective, and see that it kind of translates. That we can, especially, it seems to pertain more to veterans who've been around long enough that either age or time, mileage, has caused the breakdown in our bodies and thus usually production. And therefore, being able to fill that role of mentoring, leading by example, even if the others can quote unquote outperform, they know very well the reason they're performing at that high level is because you helped show them the way, show them tricks of the trade, whatever it is. And again, management really needs to recognize that in those contributions and reward it accordingly. So next time you're bored, maybe you're like us, sub-zero weather, it's tough to be doing a whole lot outside. Luckily, we're not getting snow dumped on us. And then, the sub-teens, sub-20 below zeros Fahrenheit that we need to be outside shoveling. But nice and cold and nothing to do outside, and you got everything caught up on inside, and you're flipping through your streaming services looking for something to watch, maybe give Mr. Baseball a shot. See if you think what I'm relating to us is BS or not. But other than that, I really want to thank you for listening. Thank you to our sponsors, Pico Technology. And thank you to the Automotive Repair Podcast Network for making this possible. Yeah, if you got a kick out of this episode or have ideas for other episodes, want to be on the show, please don't hesitate to shoot me an email at mattfonslopodcast@gmail.com, or I'm pretty easy to find on Facebook. The hackers haven't found me in a while, so that's good, but I think you still can. Until next time, take care.
You've been listening to Diagnosing the Aftermarket A to Z with Matt Fonslow on the Automotive Repair Podcast Network. Download our exclusive podcast app at automotiverepairpodcastnetwork.com because the best conversations in the industry start here. Want Matt to cover a specific topic? Check the show notes for his email. Your input matters.